Hello and welcome to Overcome a Mental Health Podcast, the place where you can share your mental health stories. I'm very excited for today's guest. I'm speaking with Laura Bratton. Laura is the author of Harnessing Courage. She's also a speaker and coach that empowers all people to overcome challenges and obstacles with grit and gratitude. And Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you creating this opportunity, this platform.
So, without further ado, I'm just going to turn the time right over to you. And I just want to you to tell the listeners about your journey with anxiety and depression.
Yeah. So all the anxiety and depression started in middle school. So towards the end of middle school, I was sitting in geography class and it was just a normal school day. And the teacher said, okay, I want you to take out your notebooks and start copying down the notes on the board. So just like I always have done, I took out my notebook, grabbed my pen, I glanced up at the board, and all I saw were these shadowy images. Nothing looked like a letter or number. It was kind of fuzzy, blurry, like more like a shadow, not like anything defined. So I looked back down at my notebook, kind of adjusted my pen, looked back up at the board, and still that's all I saw. So I leaned over to my neighbor as she was writing down all her notes and said, how are you copying down the notes on the board? There's nothing to write down. And her answer was life changing. She just said, Laura, the print is normal. What are you referring to? What are you talking about? And I vividly remember I just dropped my pen on my notebook and sat back in my chair and I don't even think I took a deep breath, just was more in shock of my new reality. So a few years before this event, I was diagnosed with a super rare retinal disease. So the cells in my retina were dying. So they had told my parents, she will lose her sight, but we don't know at what rate. So as I was sitting there in that geography class and I couldn't read the print on the board anymore, that's when the reality of that diagnosis became real. So from that day forward, that's what started the anxiety, the depression. But even before the anxiety and depression, my immediate response was denial. This is not happening. Oh, this is not that bad. This is definitely not going to last long. It's not permanent. It's not forever. It was complete denial of the situation. Once that denial wore off, that's what started the intense anxiety of panic attacks, the intense depression. My whole mantra was, I can't, I can't, I can't, I can't. And so the anxiety and depression came from that mindset of I can't. That was the emotional response to that mindset. So that's what started the intense emotional pain.
And what did your panic attacks look like to you? Because I know they're kind of all a little bit different for different people.
So for me, it was that super intense. It feels like as a therapist would describe it, like an elephant on your chest. My chest felt so heavy and so tight. It felt like I literally couldn't get breath in my lungs. Like it felt very difficult to breathe. Also, the other symptom that I noticed with the panic attacks, as I noticed that heaviness, I could very easily get intense. It felt like indigestion, but it wasn't literally indigestion. It was just the burning tightness kind of in my throat that when I swallowed, it was like the food wasn't going down. It was literally getting stuck because I was so tight and tense. My airways weren't opening up. So it was the intense in my chest. And then also just generally in my body, it was the antsiness. I just feel like I'm about to come out of my skin. Just that jittery antsy. So that's how the panic attacks manifested.
And they can be really scary. I've had a few, not like a ton, but I remember being like in a parking lot, and like a huge parking lot, and I was worried about where I was going because some of these bigger cities, I'm used to small cities, so I get panicky when I go somewhere I'm not used to.
Yes.
I was in this big parking lot. I parked the car, and I all of a sudden got a lost like a sense of direction.
Right. Yeah.
And so I remember like feeling really antsy and hyperventilating, and I couldn't like focus enough to get back on track. It took me 20 minutes to actually, maybe longer, to find my way out of that garage. And it was me calling my wife when I caught my breath and saying like, I need help getting out of here. I need you to talk me through
Talk me
this.
through. Yes. That I completely agree with that. And you said it perfectly. You lose your focus. You absolutely lose your focus. And it's not that you're distracted with something else. It's just that tightness in your chest, at least for me, it was so intense. And I was putting so much effort on trying to breathe. I didn't have it's like I didn't have the energy to focus. So I know that, yes, I can relate.
How long did your symptoms go on for? Is this something you took care of right away, or did it take some time before you got the help that you needed?
So it was both. Thankfully, as these intense panic attacks started, and clearly as a teenager, I didn't have that language to say, this is panic attacks. I could just describe how I was feeling. Thankfully, my parents recognized immediately we need to get her help. And so several factors very much significantly helped. So my mom made an appointment with a counselor, with a therapist that I could go and talk to. And so I started that. Also, at the same time, they were very diligent to make sure that I was exercising, just to move my body to get the endorphins going every day. There was let's go just walk the dog around the block after dinner. Like my dad and I would just go take the dog outside, walk around the block or whatever. So it wasn't like intense pressure forced, some regimented thing, but just very making sure that exercise was a part of my lifestyle, again, just to keep my body moving. So it just helped the blood flow, and that significantly helped my panic attacks. And they did continue through high school, but I was better able to recognize when they were coming, why they were coming, and how to treat it.
And with your blindness, I'm just curious with were you like losing sight like from that age you got diagnosed with the retina problem, or did it just all like I'm trying to think of how to phrase that.
Yeah, so
Was it something that was
it was gradual. Yeah. So yeah, you
okay?
phrased it.
That's what I was getting to. I couldn't think of I couldn't think of the word.
Yeah, you phrased it perfectly. So when I was diagnosed, after that, I lost a very minimal amount of sight. Very minimal. Like if you interacted with me, you wouldn't really know. The only difference was I would hold books a little bit closer to my face, but it was nothing really unusual. And certainly if I had trouble, a magnifier, I would just grab it. It was no problem. But again, that middle school time was really when I lost a significant amount. So way I never woke up one day and went from full sight to no sight. It wasn't like a dramatic go to bed with sight, wake up without sight. What it was I would lose a significant amount of sight, and then it would stay that way for a while. And then I'll lose a significant amount of sight, and then it would kind of even out. So by the end of high school, that lasted about 4 years through high school. By the end of high school, I had pretty much what I have now. So no usable vision, a small amount of light perception. So for example, today was a rainy, cloudy, dreary day. I had almost zero light perception. on a clear, sunny,
Okay.
crisp day, I have good light perception. So it really, really depends on the weather.
That makes sense. And when you lost your sight, think of your teenage years. How did that impact your sense of identity in your day-to-day life?
So that was a huge part of the anxiety and the depression because all of a sudden I was other. I was different. I was the disabled kid. I was the blind girl. I was big into sports and I couldn't do sports anymore. I was big into dancing. After school, several days a week, I was in multiple dance classes. And I've been doing that since I could walk, since I was like 1.5 or 2. So much of what I loved and what I was passionate about as a teenager, I was not able to continue because of the vision loss. So that was a major, major part of the anxiety and the depression because it was that identity. Then who am I?
And so these moments of uh, where you felt really overwhelmed or hopeless, whatever the word may be, how did you cope in those moments?
So both words, both overwhelmed, hopeless, fearful of the present, fearful of the future. The way that I coped and the way that I moved through that anxiety and depression, it was not me just waking up or just choosing, hey, I believe in myself. Hey, this is all going to work out. Hey, I'm just going to choose to cope and all the anxiety and depression would go away. The way I coped was the support around me. So, what I mean by that, a very tangible example was as I was overwhelmed, as I was hopeless, as I was fearful of the present and the future, my parents were saying to me, Laura, we're just going to take it day by day. We don't know how it's all going to work out. We're just going to take it day by day. And there were weeks and days and months and years where that's how we functioned. The goal of the day was to get up, get dressed, eat breakfast, and get to school on time. That's all I had to focus on. So it was the gift of my parents saying, we'll just take it day by day. And that's a lot of the grit that I talk about is, again, not the grit of just pushing forward, being positive, grinning and bearing it. Rather, that grit of setting small, manageable goals and then working through those goals day by day, moment to moment. And so the other gift that my parents gave me was that foundation of you're still you and we still believe in you. So where I was saying, I can't, they were saying, we still believe in you as our daughter. I have one older brother, and he was still treating me as his little annoying younger sister that he wished would leave him alone and not bother him while he's doing homework and trying to do sports and all the fun things. So just that normalcy was incredibly healing because they were saying through their actions, we believe in you. We believe that you can day by day, moment by moment. And again, a real life example of how I moved through that anxiety and depression was one clear night that I totally remember, and my mom does not remember this at all. She has no recollection of saying this, and I still remind her of this. So I thought in my mindset of I can't do this, in the depression and the anxiety, I was trying, oh, well, maybe just that pity, that victim, maybe that'll work. Maybe that mindset will help me feel better. So I decided, again, in my brilliant teenage mind, I'm just going to gather chores at home. I'm just not going to do anything around here that I have to do. I'm just going to use my blindness as an excuse. So one night when my mom said, okay, Laura, it's time to unload the dishwasher. I said, oh, Mom, I can't unload the dishwasher. I'm blind. And she, being an elementary school teacher, turned around and looked at me and said, Laura, unload the dishwasher. And when she said it in the teacher voice, I knew I was in trouble. I knew I didn't have any option but to unload the dishwasher. And I said, "Oh, but Mom, I can't unload the dishwasher. I can't perfectly put the silverware in the silverware drawer." And she just again said, "Laura, put the silverware in the silverware drawer." And then she just left the kitchen. She just walked out and went on and did whatever she was doing, folding clothes or I don't know, whatever. And in that moment, I remember thinking, that's a mean mom. She's a mean mom. The gift that she gave me is the gift of teaching me and showing me through her presence, through her action, you're still you and you're still held to the same standards, just with accommodations needed. So if she had said, "Okay, Laura, you don't have to unload the dishwasher, you never do chores again," that would have taught me from a mental perspective, oh, I can use this to get pity, to play the victim. What she told me was, you can navigate through this anxiety and depression as you continue forward. You're still you and you're still capable with accommodations. So the way I tell that story to say that's how I cope. I cope with the anxiety and with the depression through the family, the brother, the teachers, the friends that still treated me as me while making accommodations. Then there had to be that point where, after receiving that foundation, I had to make the conscious choice of, I accept this grit and I accept this gratitude for myself to believe that I can. Where my mindset was, I can't, I had to finally accept my new normal and accept and become comfortable in my own skin.
First of all, I think that's really cool that, like, and I've said this time and time again, that on this podcast is building a support group, having that support around you is huge.
Huge.
Yeah,
There are not enough
it's a
words to convey the power.
exactly, and that's always a big thing that I like to point out. But I love how they um, still held you accountable to the same standards, and because then in your mind it seems to me like you would still feel like, oh, I'm capable of doing everything that,
Yes.
to a certain degree of what I could do before.
Right.
And so in my eyes, that seems like it helped you build some resilience to keep pushing forward.
Yes, you took what I said in a very long story in a couple words. Yes, to build that resilience. That's exactly what my parents were teaching me. Is they were showing me, we believe you can move forward. We're treating you. We're basically, we not basically, we are giving you the resources to move forward. So now that we've laid that foundation, you can choose it. So yeah, absolutely, having that foundation of resiliency was so incredibly valuable. It was a game changer. I mean, that's what supported me in my healing, that gave me the strength to move through that anxiety and depression.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And don't get me wrong, I love the stories. I love them, every single one of
Because
them.
it illustrates our real
Yeah,
world
yeah, it
experience,
illustrates
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, were there, other than your parents, were there like any other methods of healing that you used? Did you, like, for example, did you have to go to therapy or anything like that to help you cope with this?
Yeah, so I did therapy. So my mom found a therapist, and I started that worked with adolescents. So I started to see her, and seeing a therapist was incredibly helpful. At the same time, I was also seeing a psychiatrist, that I was on antidepressant, anti-anxiety, sleep medicine, just to help regulate my system, because the anxiety and the depression was so deep that I had to have the help of those resources. Also, mindfulness. Mindfulness was incredibly healing, to learn how to control my thoughts and to learn that thoughts are thoughts. Where I was viewing thoughts as facts, as like permanent, to learn the gift of mindfulness, and also through mindfulness realizing the body scan, how to identify tensing my body, where I'm holding tension. Part of the panic attacks, I would hold not even realize I was doing it, hold my shoulders so tight, so like clench them almost. I was causing severe shoulder pain because my body was so intense. And actually, I got physical therapy because of that. It was my left shoulder. I was holding it so tight. It was pulling my spine, my shoulder blade, getting everything out of my whole body out of alignment. So when I first went and saw a physical therapist, I remember this so clearly too. I was in high school and I was laying down on the physical therapy on the table. And her first words to me, "Were you in a car accident?" And I was like, No, I not realizing where she was going with this. And I said, "No." And she said, "Your body is out of alignment in your shoulder, like I see in a lot of people who've been jarred in a car accident." And that's when I realized, oh no, that was just anxiety. I was just holding it's like I was holding all the anxiety in my shoulder. So yeah, all the therapy, the medicine, the physical therapy, like I was mentioning, the exercise, that also focusing on the lifestyle of what I was eating. Once I cut out a lot of sugar, my anxiety incredibly decreased. So that it was a whole holistic approach of a mind, body, spirit, focusing on all of it, not just one aspect of healing.
Yeah, that's crazy because you hit it like right on the spot. Of you basically described me with the when you said I was looking at things, everything is fact,
Yes. Yes.
and it's like that's exactly what I went through. Like this last year, uh, I had to learn how to, throw those bad thoughts away and not look at them. They're factual. It's just not even happened yet. Like I can get rid of them, just toss them aside.
So easy, right? And when I
Yeah.
learned that, I was like,
Talk. It takes. Yeah, it's really simple, especially once you learn how to like kind of pinpoint out those thoughts that are negative.
yes,
Be like, you know what? This isn't even happening right now. I don't
yes,
even need to think about this anymore.
yes. What was most helpful for me is I was learning mindfulness. I'd love to know if you learned this as well, or if this was helpful. What I learned with the mindfulness teacher, so I did an 8-week class on mindfulness. And when they just said, think about your thoughts either as a cloud passing by the sky, but what connected with me the most is they said, view your thoughts like at the end of a movie when they're showing all the credits, how they just quickly they're shown on the screen and then they're gone. And then they're shown on the screen and they're gone. It's just a quick blip on the screen. That's our thoughts. They just come, they go, they come, they go. That was so helpful for me to realize, oh, they can just come and go. What you said, they're not factual. They're not there to stay forever. Yeah. So what method did you learn to help you as far as the letting go that they were facts?
So my method my therapist said that imagine that you're standing by a stream and the water's like running and it's very heavy.
Oh, I love that.
And he's like, you need to subconsciously stand there and you need to think, okay, do I need this thought? Do I need this thought? He's like, and you really need to dig deep into your mind because if you don't need it, you could just throw that thought onto a lily pad and watch it float by.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to think about that. Oh, I love that image.
So I found myself pausing during my day after that therapy session. And, I'd feel that when like the anxiety would come into my head or that thought, and I'd be like, okay, is this needed? Is this not? Like, is this true? Like, where does this lie right now? And I just throw it away. Like, and it made it so easy. And I was like, if I could have done this years ago.
Life changing, right? A lot would have been different.
Yeah. So crazy.
Wow.
And it's just like those little things. It's just crazy. Those little things can help so much.
Yes, they can make an incredible difference. Yes.
What practices or routines do you use to support your mental health now?
So I still use all the same. So very much focused on my eating. So again, I do very little processed food. I can feel the difference when I have a lot of sugar or have a lot of carbs. I can just feel that I can feel my anxiety just generally getting more anxious in my body. And the exercise is incredibly helpful. Routine with having exercise is very, very, very helpful for me and incredibly powerful. Another routine that has been life changing is the gift of gratitude. That has been an absolute game changer in my perspective. So, backing up to those high school days, when I was incredibly depressed, deeply anxious, having constant panic attacks, a mentor, a teacher of mine in high school, I don't even remember what our conversation was about one particular day, but she said at the end of our meeting, she was like, Laura, I want you to start thinking about gratitude. I want you to start writing down 3 things that you're grateful for. As she said that, of course, in my southernness, I just smiled and nodded. But in my head, I was thinking, I don't think you're a good mentor. I'm severely depressed. I'm incredibly anxious. I can't even function in school. I'm trying to adjust to life without sight. And you're telling me you're grateful. I have nothing to be grateful for. So, in my complete stubbornness and honestly, my desire to prove her wrong, I started writing down things I was grateful for. And the day became 3 days, and the 3 days became 7 days. And what I realized is I thought she was saying and teaching me write down what you're grateful for because of the blindness. That is not at all what she was teaching me. What she was saying was think about what you're grateful for that helps navigate through the blindness. So, for example, be grateful for the parents that held you to the same standard. Be grateful for the brother who continued to treat you like that little annoying younger sister. Be thankful for the teachers that make accommodations in school so you can complete your academic requirements. Again, I thought she was saying be grateful for the change, for the anxiety, for the depression. She was saying be grateful for what helps you navigate through the anxiety, through the depression. Learning that shift in gratitude was and still is every single day a major way that I cope and navigate through the day.
Yeah, I've heard of something like that before. I honestly have never done it. It's like one of those things that I always say, like, I want to try, I should try
Yeah.
this just to see where it
See
leads
where
me
it
because
leads. Yeah.
it,
Well, take the perspective of me. Take in stubbornness, say, no, this doesn't work. I'm gonna prove everybody wrong.
uh,
And it just and what it is for me now, again, this was in high school. What it is for me now today, because I've done it for so long, I don't stop at the end of every day and think back on the day. Just throughout the day, as events and interactions happen, I just instantly become grateful. So as I have a conversation, I will be grateful for that conversation, that, stranger that was a great interaction, or it can be as simple as I'm grateful for that lunch. I'm grateful for the sunshine. I'm grateful for pets, whatever it might be just throughout the day. And some days it's grateful that the day's over. That's what I've learned about gratitude. It's not focusing on those, it doesn't have to be just focusing on those major life events. It's noticing and recognizing the everyday, tiny, mundane moments that we're grateful for. And that has
yeah,
helped me reframe my anxiety.
it's really cool. And I love hearing like these stories of people learning how to kind of turn shape their mindset and turn stuff around.
Yes.
But you totally reminded me of something my therapist once said, and I don't remember the exact words. It was like some little phrase that he used, but it was pretty much celebrate the small stuff.
Oh.
Said he told me, and it was different words that he used, and I really can't remember it. He said, like, if you get out and do something, like even if it's little teeny, like do it, like celebrate it. Say, you know what, this was a win for
A
today.
win. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, even if it's out like looking at the sunshine, it's a win.
It's a win.
Like don't forget to celebrate the small stuff, because it's not, life isn't all about like the big things that happen.
Big major moments. Absolutely. I completely agree. And celebrating those wins is what helps me cope and move forward from the anxiety, because focusing on those small wins, that all builds up to circling back to what you were saying earlier, that all builds resiliency. All those little moments add up to being a resilient person, having a resilient mindset, a resilient spirit. I 100% agree.
So let's see, go through my list here. This is one that I was curious about. So how has your experience with blindness reshaped your understanding of ability, strength, and independence?
Great question. So, as a teenager, as I'm going through this transition from sight to no sight, I viewed independence and strength as you do it on your own. You accomplish life independent from help. What I realized, and what took me a long time to realize, was strength and independence comes from knowing our needs and being able to communicate those needs and trusting others to support us. So, I viewed asking for help as a weakness. I'm not good enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not independent enough. Because I can't complete this task, that makes me not independent. That makes me not strong. That makes me weak. What I had to realize is asking for help is a deep, deep source of strength, because it's having the self confidence, it's having the self love, it's having the self compassion to say, I know my needs, I know myself, I know that I need help with this task. And I'm trusting you as a family member or friend, I'm trusting you to support me in that. So that was a major mindset shift for me. And that helped a lot with anxiety and depression, where being overwhelmed and fearful of how I ever accomplish all this, learning that I will accomplish it by depending on others, by trusting others. And that's a source of strength, the source of courage, not a source of weakness.
And it's crazy how many things that like you're saying that are like hitting on some of my life experiences. It's just insane. Like,
Yes. The human
I had some
experience
medical, yeah,
is so similar as far as our emotions, our emotional experience.
Like I had some medical problems. I had to learn how to depend on others, and I viewed it the same way. I viewed like depending on others as kind of like a weakness. So I did dare to ask for help.
Right. You would rather suffer and be in pain, right? Than ask for help. Absolutely. Or fake it or just go without rather than asking for what you needed. Yes.
Exactly.
That was a long process of learning that, because like I said, that takes a lot of self-confidence to being able to ask for that and ask in a clear way, ask in a way that meets your needs.
And not only self-confidence, but it's like you have to be vulnerable sometimes too.
100%. Yes. Are you familiar with Brene Brown's work? I love her work on vulnerability.
I have heard the name. I've seen the name pop up a couple times, but I've never really looked into her stuff.
So when you have time, read her book, Daring Greatly. I absolutely love the book because she teaches about vulnerability, how we were just describing. It's not vulnerable like I'm vulnerable, I'm weak. It's vulnerable like I'm strong to know what I need. And so I'm being vulnerable to open up to you to ask. That, yes, that vulnerability piece again is a big part of the coping through the anxiety, through the depression.
Yes, it totally is. So I'd love for you to tell the listeners a little bit more about your book, Harnessing Courage.
So, harnessing courage, first, I want to talk about the title. So, the reason I named the book Harnessing Courage for two different reasons. The first reason is so I've had two guide dogs, and the leather strap that goes around the dog, and then the end of that strap, which is the obviously the handle that the person holds, that the blind person holds, that's called the harness. So the dog wears the harness, the person holds it, and then as the dog moves forward, you're following, you're being led by the harness. So the courage it takes to trust that dog. Again, my first guide dog was a 54-pound little black female lab. So I just trust that dog to be my eyes to keep me physically safe. So I named the book Harnessing Courage to honor her and out of deep, deep, deep respect for her, because it took a lot of courage to hold that harness and to trust her moving forward. The other reason that I named it Harnessing Courage was from the emotional mindset perspective. So every single day, I have to choose and make the choice to harness the courage that I need for that specific day. In our human experience, unfortunately, we can't just one time say, okay, I feel courageous, so I'll be courageous for the rest of my life. Or I don't have anxiety today, so I won't have anxiety for the rest of my life. Rather, it's a day to day lived experience. So every day making that conscious decision, I have to choose to be courageous today. So that's the reason for the title. The reason that I wrote the book was to tell my story and tell it through the perspective of grit and through the perspective of gratitude, so that anyone could pick up the book, regardless of the change they're going through, mental, physical, spiritual. They could receive those resources of grit and gratitude, and that could be a healing tool as they move forward. Because the foundation that was around me and the support that I received, I was passionate about paying that forward, about paying that support forward to other people that they could benefit from the support that I received. So my passion, my driving force behind the book was to tell my story, but again, tell it in a way that so many other people could benefit.
That's so cool. And I love the reasoning behind the title.
It was very deliberate.
And I can't imagine what it would be like. I mean, I have a dog, but I can't imagine what it'd be like putting my life in his hands. I trust him a lot, but it's like to start that off and do that, like it'd just be, I can't even imagine like what it would be like. Like
It's literally step by step, and I mean that again very literally. I mean, the first time I was with the dog, we literally walked a block, and that's all we did that first day, and that felt like 12,000 miles. To trust that dog, the steps through the block was like trusting a very long way. So yes, it takes a lot of trust in that connection, that human animal connection.
and when you first start off with like a guide dog, do you have somebody with you, like
Yes,
walking you through it all?
100%. So the trainer is on the first couple of days, first weeks, the trainer's right there with you. So the training is a month long. Each week, they're always with you, but each week they get a little bit further behind you. That first week, they're basically walking right behind you, almost side by side. And each week they walk a little bit further behind you just to give you that sense of I'm on my own, but they're right there if anything happens or they need you, you need them. So yes, that's another level of security that helps build that trust that as I start trusting this dog, there's someone else that's watching me, observing, and knows what to do if
Yeah.
I need help.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. It's really cool that like dogs are able to do that.
Yes. Yes, they are incredibly gifted.
And you said you've been through two different dogs. Can you actually tell difference between the different dogs' behaviors and like the way they pull you or guide you?
Yes, 1,000%. So when I applied for my first guide dog, I thought a dog's a dog, they're all the same. And on the application and part of the process, they came and they measured my gait. They measured my height. They measured everything about me, the length of my arm. They interviewed me about my lifestyle. What would my lifestyle be like? And I couldn't really, I could cognitively understand why they were doing all that, but I couldn't really emotionally understand how is this going to make a difference? Are you just going to give me a dog and it'll all work out? Like that doesn't matter. But it drastically, incredibly matters. So when I was in class, both times it was about 20 other people. And I could tell you by the end of that class, oh, this dog would never have worked for me. This dog, was a great fit. Oh, this dog might would have worked, but not really good connection. So yes, absolutely. Can you tell a difference in the person's personality? The dog's personality is very different as far as when I say they're different, I see they're different because they're human and animal. But I mean, as far as matching them up, that it's not just a
Well, okay.
dog to a random person, but it's very
Yeah.
specific. And even with the dogs, so the two that I've had, their personalities were similar, but they were different how we interacted. So my first dog was very headstrong, very take charge, very just like my guide dog trainer literally said, "Oh yeah, you got Miss Little Fireball. Like she's a little fireball." That was just her personality. My second dog she was obviously still driven, but not, she wasn't as driven. She was more laid back. She wasn't as take charge as the first dog. She still did a great job and was a wonderful guide. It just was not the same personality. So I could tell a distinct difference in the two dogs.
So yeah, I love hearing like I have a fascination with dogs, so it just sounds like a like way longer process than I mean I've seen little parts and bits and pieces of like how they do it, but it's just curious. I think coming from someone who's used a guide dog before, so it's
Yes. And part of the anxiety and coping with the anxiety depression was their presence. And so I had each of them about 11 years, and just their presence, that unconditional love, that genuine just calmness, just petting the dog was an incredible source of healing that I give my first guide dog so a lot of credit for my emotional healing, the physical safety, absolutely, but also just emotional healing because she was such a gift of presence and such a gift of just that support as I adjusted to the new normal. So yes, an intense
yes.
source of healing. They are an incredible resource.
I 100% agree. I have a he's a lab shepherd mix and about 70 pounds around that. So he's fairly big, but I can't say like what he's done for my anxiety because it's
Yes.
like
It
unexplainable.
is literally unexplainable. You cannot put it into words.
Yeah. And it was like, well, it was a moment when I wasn't even planning on getting a dog. I was living with at the time I was engaged and I was living with in my future mother-in-law's house because I was going through some stuff and I couldn't like keep down a job. I couldn't afford to live anywhere else. So
Yeah.
she's like, yeah, stay here. And then when you get on your feet, you can move out. And so my fiance at the time, who's now my wife, we saw this dog in a parade just walking by. And I was like, I love the looks of that dog. So we were at the park afterwards. And I was like, we get a dog. And I was like, it was like one of those moments where I was like half kidding.
Right, of
And
course.
she actually called her mom because it wasn't my house. And she's like, I actually think a dog would be really good for Travis right now. And so we ended up paying like $300 for him at that time. And like we've done extensive training with him. He had a little aggression problem, but like so we put him in training. We did puppy camps. Like it
Yes.
was, but it's been the whole experience. Like, and my wife will say this today is she saw my anxiety go from way up high to like even out when
Even.
he was
Yes,
around.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it. That is very real. Yeah, that is very real. The power and the healing power and just a support, right? Just that constant support. Yeah. Wow. That is such a benefit.
And there's one thing that you've talked about a little bit that I want to touch base on again because it's come up a few times in my podcast now, and that is eating healthy.
Yes.
The holistic view,
Yes.
like the holistic diet,
Yes.
like no sugar and less processed foods. That's like incredible what like that does.
It is incredible. Just my anxiety and as well, not, I can point more towards the anxiety than the depression. It, again, it's like the dog. I can describe it, but words can't accurately I can't accurately put into words how much it affects me. When I have a lot of sugar, when I eat a lot of ice cream, just it's a dramatic, drastic difference. I can just feel my sleep is off. My sleep is not as good. My dreams are not good. It's a very clear, I don't want to exercise. So, yeah, having that balance. And also, another thing that I've learned with the food is the timing. So eating in a smaller window, whether that's, 12 hours a day, within a 12-hour, eating your food within a 12-hour window or like a 10-hour window, just as long as I'm not constantly kind of snacking throughout the day, late night, I've very much found like late night affects my sleeping. So it's very powerful how the fresh vegetables and fruits drastically change how my mind and body just react. I mean, all kind of issues that holds in my panic attacks just drastically affect the food. So yes, it's motivation to eat well because I feel so good. And when I don't eat well, can feel the difference. I don't feel well and it doesn't feel good. And
Yeah. And it doesn't,
yeah, go ahead.
I was saying it doesn't take much, like, because we've been kind of doing this. We've started lowering our sugar and we're getting to the point where we're only keeping gluten-free stuff in the house.
Yes.
But I could tell difference in kids, and it doesn't take much, like when we go eat out, to like actually feel sick.
Feel sick. Exactly. Yeah. Feel sick. It doesn't take much at all. Yeah. 100%. It's the drastic difference. What I've also realized is important is not being super, super strict about it. And I say that from my own experience of first I went to the too extreme of I can never have sugar. I'll never eat ice cream again. I'll never eat a cookie again. I'll never eat a piece of pizza again. And that's not healthy either because then all you do is crave it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So what's helped for me that mentors I've learned from a lot of help people is that 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time eating not processed food and 20% of the time eat your ice cream and enjoy it.
Yeah.
And what I found by that balance is when I want ice cream, having a little bit of ice cream, that's all I want. I don't have to eat the whole pint gallon of ice cream, right? Like I don't have to I don't have this huge craving. So again, it's not that I'm depriving myself of food, it's that I'm choosing most of the time to eat healthy. So that's great. You all have experienced that as well, because that has been major benefits.
It's a game changer.
It is.
And we've actually found a sugar substitute that we use to like bake our goods.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
We use allulose, and it tastes. Obviously, there's a taste difference than like the regular sugar, but it's way more expensive. But it's so like worth it.
It is worth it.
Not
it's
feel those.
So worth it. And I mean, I've even had family members and friends notice a difference in me. Like, what have you done? What have you done different? I mean, it's tangible to them that, who know me well. And when I say, focus on my food and healthy eating, it's encouraged other people to do the same. And they're like, wow, you're not kidding. This really does make a difference. So yeah, the power is incredible.
And I can tell a huge difference with my kids in the way they act.
Yes. Yes. 100%. Absolutely. Yes. Definitely.
So somebody that may be struggling with a mental health problem today, what advice would you give them?
So my first advice, the first step in the advice would be to acknowledge that you are struggling. And what I mean by that is circling back to what I was first sharing about that denial in those middle school, high school years when I was in denial and in that I can't perspective. I was not willing to sit in the pain and acknowledge this is incredibly painful. I am anxious. I am depressed. I am fearful. I wasn't giving myself the space to acknowledge how I feel. So the first part of my advice, the first step of that advice is for anyone struggling, acknowledge that you're struggling. Acknowledge, yes, this change is really, really hard. What's causing the depression is incredibly difficult. What is causing the anxiety, that actually is incredibly difficult. So once we acknowledge what we're feeling and give ourselves that self-love and self-respect to acknowledge it, take it day by day, moment by moment, hour by hour, rather than getting overwhelmed at the whole entire future. How am I going to go from panic attacks to no anxiety? Rather just say, how do I get through the next hour? Just like you were giving that example of having a panic attack in a parking lot, rather than saying, how do I live life so I never have panic attacks again in a parking lot or anytime ever? Just saying, okay, what do I have to do to calm this panic attack in the next 5 minutes, in the next 10 minutes? So that's my advice that I wish I had had in those high school days. Acknowledge your struggle, acknowledge what you're feeling, and then choose to take it moment by moment by moment.
It's awesome. I love it. And when you were finally able to acknowledge your struggles, especially your anxiety and depression, what did that look like? Like, how was it like a aha moment, or was there something that you remember like, okay, well, I'm going through this and I need to get help?
Yes, absolutely. It was acknowledging that I'm going through it and saying, I need help. And that was incredibly healing. Saying that to myself and realizing that to myself was actually a source of healing. And that's, you perfectly said, the first part of that advice. Once I could acknowledge in myself, I need help because I'm feeling anxious, because of this anxiety, because of this intense depression, that was a step of healing. So that's my encouragement. Just acknowledge you're feeling what you're feeling. And that's not a weakness. That's not making you less than. It just is what it is.
And do you feel like for you, there was like a moment that like triggered that particular instance for you to actually realize that you needed help? Or do you think it was just like built it all up over time?
For me, it was building up over time. So there wasn't one major moment. It was building up over time where the anxiety was so much and the depression was so deep. And again, because I had the support around me laying that foundation that I could be resilient and could move forward, that's when I slowly realized it's gotten so bad emotionally. And yet I had the support of resiliency around me. How can I work through this anxiety and this depression so that I can be resilient? So it was definitely a series of building up and then a series of working through the anxiety and depression.
And sometimes it's so sad that like it takes years
Yes.
to actually realize that you need that help.
It takes years because it builds up slowly, right? Like
Mhm.
it's life as different life experiences come at us, it builds up slowly. So it takes years for us to recognize actually how deep we are. And because it happens slow, we don't realize how deep we are, how much we are in it and absorbed in it.
Yeah, exactly. And then next question is, you've listened to my podcast, you probably know this is coming. Probably it's a pretty generalized question. I just love to hear the different feedback I get. What do you believe is the biggest stigma to mental health?
Our feelings are not valid. The anxiety, and what I mean by that, again, going back to my own experience, the reason I say that is I remember countless situations where I would express that I'm feeling anxious and the response was something like, get over it, oh, be strong, oh, think positive, other people have it worse than you do. It was minimizing the validity of my feelings. So for me, that's what I first.
Yeah, and that's very true. Like, it's like when somebody tells you that after you're stating your feelings, it's like, I don't even want to talk about it anymore.
It shuts you down, right? Yes. You
Completely.
shut down from your emotions, both within yourself and being honest with others how you really feel. Because again, my assumption was, well, I'm not going to share how I really feel because the next person, again, I assume this was just going to say the exact same thing. So why even share? Right. Yeah. And
Yeah,
that increases exactly how you're feeling. That intensifies the anger, the sadness, the depression, even more so. So it just builds on itself. Yeah.
exactly. And I'd love, just one more thing here. I'd love for you to just touch base on your speaking and coaching.
Yeah. So my speaking and coaching is all about the grit and the gratitude. And specifically, it's how to use grit and gratitude to navigate through change. So I speak to organizations and to groups of people about, yes, this was my life situation. This was the change I experienced. And here's how I navigated through it with the mindset, the perspective, the tool of grit and of gratitude. So here's how you can also apply it in your direct situation. And again, just like for the book, my passion for the speaking, for the coaching comes from the place of, as I receive such incredible foundation of support, I want to go and speak on that and work with other people as they go through change, as they go through loss, as they go through anxiety, depression. I want to be that support to them, with them, for them.
Awesome. I love it. And I love that you're doing something to help people.
Yes. Yes. I was working with a speech coach and she said, so you're giving your pain purpose. And that was
That's a good way to put it.
so well said. I love that. It's giving the emotional pain purpose.
Your pain purpose, giving your pain purpose.
Yes. I
Right.
love it.
Um, I'm writing that one down
Yes.
because I might use that here and there because I love that.
Definitely use that. That has been great. I use that all the time now since she said that. I'm like, yes, you're right. That's exactly what the speaking coaching is doing. It's giving the pain purpose.
Perfect. And where can people find you?
The best place is my website. So laurabratton.com has all the information about the speaking, the coaching, and the book. So that's the best resource.
Perfect. Is there anything that we have not discussed that you would like to?
Again, I just want to reiterate, and I'm saying this from my own experience, advice I wish I'd received regarding mental health, mental wellness. Just as I said before, I want to say it again. Give yourself the space to feel what you're feeling and trust yourself moment by moment by moment by moment. And know that the feeling, the difficult feelings, taking it moment by moment, that is enough. And that's all you need to do in that moment, in that day.
I love it. Laura, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for creating this platform for people to give voice, to tell their story, to give a safe space to be vulnerable and to be open. Again, that our feelings and our stories have voice. So thank you for the opportunity.
It's been a pleasure speaking with you, and it's stories like yours that keep me going. So thank you to our listeners. Thanks for joining in today, and please subscribe to our channel, follow us, like our stuff, and share it. That's the best thing you could do for us right now, is just to get the name of our podcast out there. And thanks again for listening. Until next time.